Hello everyone and welcome to another English with Joseph. Well, today I want to talk to you about the subject of identity cards. When I'm teaching daily, I'm always asked the same question. Where do I get my identity card when I move to the UK? And there's always a lot of surprise when people learn that we don't have identity cards. In fact, we don't have any kinds of national identity proof that we give the government. Part of the reason for this is because our government are not allowed to ask us anything about our private lives in the name of democracy. They're also not allowed to interfere with our private business. Yes, they do keep records, of course, or I should say, records are kept in the passive tense because these records are not kept by the government. But I suppose the government could access them. For example, when we have to get a passport, when we have to get a driving license. So immediately they know where we travel to and also what we look like. They also keep notes of our birth certificates. They also have a note of all of our bank accounts. So if you're coming to the UK then, how would you open a bank account without an identity card? Well, you would have to show the bank that you live somewhere, so you'd have to give them proof of address, such as an electricity bill, a letter from your landlord, a contract of rental. And then the other thing you would have to show them is photographic ID, passport, driving license. Now, banks, some of them can be very difficult with this, but some of them can be very easy. So if you're coming to the UK and you're trying to open a bank account, ask around because there's at least two very well-known banks who are very relaxed on this issue. If you want more information on that, please do write to me. But do ask different banks before you choose the correct one if you don't have the necessary ID. So how do they prevent fraud? Well, one of the ways our banks prevents fraud is they share information. All information is shared between our financial institutions. They tell us in advance before they share information about us, but by running a credit check, they can easily find where we are or where we were recently. In other ways that they can check up on us, I suppose, they can look at where we lived previously, because if you give them a letter which is proof of identity of where you live now, if it's very recent, they will say, okay, well, where did you live before? And they can run an address check to make sure that address is real, even though they can't check who actually lived in it. So if you've had a bank account in the UK before, it's much easier than when you first come to the country. Because we don't have any uniform identity cards, it's very hard to prove who we are if we get caught by the police. But the police can and do ask us who we are, but they're only allowed to do that if they suspect us of a crime. And usually if they suspect us of a crime and we don't have any identity with us, they can say, okay, come to the station tomorrow morning. Okay, so they will take basic information and then they will say, come to the station later, or if it's very bad, they'll take us to the station and then ask us who we are. But that's the only time that the British government is allowed to question you. They're trying to change the law now, and in fact they have changed the law recently because of terrorism, where they're able to access and share information with different government departments, but that information is not easy for anyone to obtain. Okay, so the long story is that the British government know who we all are. They have records such as our birth certificates, driving license and passports to prove who we are, but it's not always easy for them to find us if they need to. Okay, then there's no central records kept. There's a census return which is completed every 10 years, and that records the name and address of who lives in what house, but that information is kept strictly confidential and is only for the purposes of future generations who wish to trace their family history, and also to check on ethnicity and religion, because they're not really concerned who lives at what address, but they're more concerned about how many white people are living in one street or in one town or one area, so they can then publish figures to see how the UK is changing. Okay, well, I hope that's of help to you, and let's talk again soon. Thank you and goodbye.